107 Days by Kamala Harris. The narrative begins just over 100 days before the election, with Vice President Kamala Harris watching President Joe Biden's debate performance against Donald Trump in Atlanta. From the moment Biden walks unsteadily onto the stage, Harris has a gnawing feeling of unease. His voice is thready, and he struggles to articulate his points, at one point losing his train of thought and blurting out, "We finally beat Medicare." As she watches with her most trusted staff, seasoned media advisor Brian Fallon, campaign chief of staff Sheila Nix, and communications director Kristen Allen, the performance devolves into what social media quickly labels a disaster. In the aftermath, Harris rejects the pre-written talking points urging her to claim victory, and instead goes on air to defend Biden's 3.5-year record of performance, contrasting it with the 90 minutes on stage. She acknowledges the concerns, but pivots to the high stakes of the election, a performance that earns her praise for its coherence and strength. This debate debacle is the culmination of weeks of growing anxiety within the Democratic Party. Harris recounts that the pressure for Biden to drop out had been immense, fueled by a special counsel report that painted him as an elderly man with a poor memory. Though Biden's team had pushed for the debate, hoping it would quell doubts, it had the opposite effect. 3 weeks after the debate, on a quiet Sunday morning, while doing a jigsaw puzzle with her grandnieces, Amara and Leela, Harris receives a call on her secure phone from a blocked number. It is Joe Biden, his voice hoarse with COVID, telling her he has decided to drop out of the race. The world shifts in an instant. Harris, still in her sweatpants, scrambles to alert her family and core team, including her husband, Doug M. Hoft, who is in Los Angeles, and her sister, Maya Harris, who is in New York. She urges Biden to endorse her immediately upon his announcement, warning that any delay will create ruinous speculation. After a tense negotiation involving his aides, Biden agrees. Within the hour, his announcement hits social media, followed 27 minutes later by his endorsement of Harris as the Democratic candidate for president. The vice president's residence transforms into a campaign boiler room. Harris and her team, including her astute brother-in-law Tony West, immediately begin a marathon of phone calls to secure the support of delegates, governors, and party leaders. The response is overwhelmingly positive, with figures like Barack Obama, Bill and Hillary Clinton, and Jim Clyburn quickly pledging their support. The campaign, which had been financially struggling, receives a massive influx of $81 million in the first 24 hours. The next day, Harris officially launches her campaign. After standing in for the COVID-stricken president at a White House event for college athletes, she flies to campaign headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware. There she is greeted by an emotional and re-energized staff. She reassures the existing campaign leadership, including Chair Jen O'Malley Dillon, that she wants them to stay, but also makes it clear she is bringing in her own trusted strategists like David Plouffe to reshape the campaign for a 107-day sprint. In her first speech as the candidate, she praises Biden's legacy before prosecuting the case against her opponent. "Hear me when I say," she tells the cheering crowd, drawing on her prosecutorial background, "I know Donald Trump's type." She systematically compares her record of taking on predators and fraudsters to Trump's history as a man found liable for sexual abuse and guilty of 34 counts of fraud. The campaign hits the road at a furious pace. At a rally in Wisconsin, she introduces a new slogan that immediately catches fire with the crowd: "We're not going back." It becomes a rallying cry against Trump's agenda of regression. One of the most urgent tasks is selecting a vice presidential running mate in an excruciatingly tight 16-day window. Her first choice is her friend Pete Buttigieg, a brilliant and qualified public servant. But she concludes that a ticket with a woman of color and a gay man is too big a political risk in such a high-stakes election. After a secretive vetting process, she narrows the list to 3 finalists: Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Following a weekend of intense interviews at her residence, she chooses Walz, a plain-spoken former teacher, football coach, and National Guardsman from rural America. She sees in him an authentic connection to a different part of the country, someone who would notice who wasn't in the room and know how to reach them. Their rollout rally in Philadelphia is a roaring success, showcasing a ticket that combines her background with his Midwestern appeal. The Democratic National Convention in Chicago is rapidly rebranded to celebrate her nomination. The event is a show of unity and enthusiasm, featuring powerful speeches from her husband, Doug, who speaks lovingly of their blended family and her dedication, from Michelle and Barack Obama, and from Tim Walz, who tells his family's moving story of their struggle with infertility. On the final night, Harris accepts the nomination, telling her own story of being raised by her mother, a brilliant cancer researcher from India, to be a proud Black woman. She frames her entire career, from prosecutor to vice president, as a fight for one client: the people. The centerpiece of the campaign becomes her one and only debate against Donald Trump. Her team, led by veteran trial lawyer Karen Dunn, puts her through an intense 5-day debate camp with combative strategist Felipe Rines playing the role of Trump. The preparation is grueling but vital. Hours before the debate, she receives a bewildering and dispiriting call from Joe Biden, who complains that power brokers in Philadelphia are not supporting her because she has been saying bad things about him. Shaking off the call, she walks onto the stage and confidently introduces herself to Trump, who refuses to make eye contact with her for the entire 90 minutes. The debate is a clash of styles and substance. Harris is prepared and on offense, prosecuting Trump for his tariffs, his attacks on the Affordable Care Act, and his role in overturning Roe v. Wade. Trump is undisciplined, repeating debunked lies, most memorably ranting about Haitian immigrants eating pets in Springfield, Ohio. Harris remains composed, landing sharp blows, at one point audibly gasping when she mentions his 34 felony convictions, and later stifling a curse while referring to his invitation of the Taliban to Camp David. Her performance is widely seen as a decisive victory, and the campaign raises $47 million in the subsequent 24 hours. Despite the post-debate surge, the race remains incredibly tight. The campaign is a relentless grind of rallies, interviews, and policy speeches, shadowed by national and global crises. Harris deals with the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, a devastating storm that rips through the Southeast, all while Trump spreads lies that her administration is withholding aid from Republican areas. She continues her duties as vice president, monitoring an Iranian missile attack on Israel from the Situation Room, and celebrating the release of American prisoners Paul Whelan and Evan Gershkov from Russia in a complex prisoner exchange she helped negotiate. The campaign faces a barrage of attacks. Trump and his allies question her racial identity, falsely claiming she happened to turn Black. Right-wing media picks up a story about Doug's affair during his previous marriage, forcing their family to endure a painful public rehashing. The most damaging attack, however, comes in the form of a massive multi-million-dollar ad buy focusing on transgender athletes, painting her as an extremist with the tagline, "Kamala is for they, them, President Trump is for you." Despite the political damage, Harris refuses to abandon or attack the transgender community, staying true to her lifelong role as a protector of vulnerable people. In the final weeks, the campaign's momentum seemed to stall. A gaffe by Joe Biden, in which he appears to call Trump supporters garbage, creates a firestorm that Harris must clean up. She holds a massive, joy-filled rally on the Ellipse in Washington, D.C.,
framing the election as a clear choice between his enemies list and her to-do list. On Election Day, November 5th, Harris and her family gather at the vice president's residence, confident of victory based on internal polling. But as the night wears on, a grim reality sets in. Key states like North Carolina and Georgia fall to Trump. The hoped-for blue wall of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin begins to crumble. Her team, huddled in a boiler room, realizes the path to victory had vanished. In a moment of devastating finality, she is told, "I don't think you're going to get there." Instead of a victory speech at Howard University, her campaign co-chair, Cedric Richmond, addresses the heartbroken crowd, telling them they will not hear from the vice president that night. In the aftermath, reeling from the shock, Harris makes the concession call to Trump and delivers a speech at Howard University the next day. She vows that while she concedes the election, she will not concede the fight for the country's future. Her final official act as vice president comes on January 6th when, with poise and discipline, she presides over the Senate's certification of Donald J. Trump's victory, upholding the peaceful transfer of power that he had sought to destroy 4 years earlier. The memoir concludes with a reflection on the razor-thin margin of the loss and the swift, devastating implementation of Trump's Project 2025 agenda. Harris argues that democracy's guardrails are buckling under a long-planned assault from the right wing. She rejects despair, calling instead for a new blueprint for the future, one centered on investing in Gen Z and rebuilding a government that truly works for the people. Though she no longer holds office, she declares that her work is not done. The fight, she concludes, is always worth it.